Right then, so let's have a look at what is new in ReSharper 9. The first thing we see is when we install ReSharper, it's got a brand new unified installer. You can install all of our tools from one main installation package. There's several reasons for this and several sort of benefits it gives us. The primary reason really is that it makes it easier for you to get our tools and install everything in one go. The second reason is a very good one, is that now we have refactored all of our products across the line to use a common platform. What this means is that when you install ReSharper and .cover and .trace, you're not installing separate products as such. You're installing .cover and .trace essentially as extensions to ReSharper. So with the upshot of this is that now there is minimal overhead to having .cover and .trace installed. They do not build their own code model. They share a code model with ReSharper, so the analysis is only performed once, so we got better usage of resources. This is a very important point for the reason that we've re-architected things. It also allows us to be able to enable and disable features. So if you don't want to use unit testing, you can turn unit testing off. If you don't want to have navigation or other refactoring of such features, you can turn those off. Same with HTML and CSS. You can enable and disable just the features that you want to see. And thirdly, it enables a simpler licensing scheme. So instead of having a ReSharper and a ReSharper full edition, where the only difference was really VB support, we've now got a main ReSharper license. This covers everything in ReSharper, which is C#, VB, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, XAML, and so on. And that is your main normal ReSharper license. We're also going to be having a ReSharper C++ license for when C++ support is launched. We're currently at a beta level for that at the moment. We're still working on that to release shortly. And then finally, we've got a ReSharper Ultimate license. This is everything, basically. It's everything that's in ReSharper, VB, C#, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, XAML, all the normal goodness, but it also includes all the dot tools as well. So .cover, .trace, .memory, they're all part of the Ultimate package now. And again, when you install those, it's minimal overhead, and it's a very good way of getting access to all of these tools and getting them to integrate with ReSharper. But that's enough about PowerPoint. Let's switch to some code. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So I'm going to start with some changes we've made around navigation. And the first thing we're going to look at here is some changes we've made in the find usages. It's a very sort of straightforward change. We have made it now so that find usages runs as a background process. What this means is if the searching takes a while, it no longer locks up the UI, no longer puts up a big modal progress dialog, and it searches inline. So I'm going to search for find usages of this name property here. And if you keep an eye in the top right-hand corner of the editor, we'll see we've got a little inline progress indicator, and it displays and runs like that, and then displays the results. What this means is if there is a long-running operation, it stays up in the corner there, doesn't interrupt your actual work, and displays the results when it's ready. We've also made improvements into actually how fast it goes. So this has proved a tricky feature to demo, because generally, if you try it again, it comes up dead fast, and it's very tricky to use. Another thing we've done here is a small feature. If you hit F7 on the same item again, if you find usages on the same property again, it actually displays it in the same tab. So we're just reusing that, and what happens is we just refresh the contents there. So it's about trying to be a bit smarter about using the resources of your computer. Instead of opening loads of tabs here to give you loads of details, instead of showing us loads of details and loads of tabs and using up lots of memory to do that, we smartly reuse existing tabs. Another feature we've got with the find usages, it's just a nice convenience feature. If we expand all of this, one of the reasons you might use find usages is to have a look through your code to find where something is used and to try and narrow it down to something that you're interested in. And as you go through, you might decide, well, these aren't the things that I'm interested in. So what I can do is I can right-click on them and ignore them, and they get marked as grayed out and ignored. And so when I'm carrying on looking through my code here, then I can see that this has already been looked at. It's not what I'm looking for, so I can happily ignore it. Just a nice little convenience feature that we've got there. Another new feature for navigation we've added is to try and solve the problem you've got. It's all well and good finding usages of a type. I've got a type here called member reference. If I try and find usages of that, I'll get a whole list of useful things. But what I quite often want to be able to do is find out how I can get a hold of a member reference. And for this, we've added a new navigate to exposing APIs feature. And this will show me a list of wherever this member is returned back as a return value. And here it's showing us a big list, which we can use this icon at the top right of the menu here to pop into a normal find results usage, and it will show us everywhere that the type member reference and its deriving types, wrong button, sorry, are used as a return value. And this drop-down menu here shows you lots of useful places where it is, showing derived types as well. And if we get to the end of the list, we can see actually where it's being used as a generic substitution as well. This is a very useful way of actually being able to find out how to get a hold of a type so that you can then use it in future future calls. Another nice little change we've got is if we are having a list. So if we have a list, say, of type reference, if I want to show the type of, if I want to navigate to the type of list, ReSharper will now say, you've got a generic type there, and it'll split it out. It's saying, are you interested in showing me showing the definition of list, or are you interested in showing the definition of the generic parameter type reference? Again, it's a useful way to sort of disambiguate how you're using your code. Right, so the next thing we're going to do, one thing we're very much aware of with ReSharper is that it's a big product. There's a lot to it. There's got a fantastic amount of functionality, but it can be a little bit overwhelming to start with. We've got a lot of keyboard shortcuts. We've got a lot of options, a lot of menu options. So navigating your way around can be tricky. So we want to try and bring some of the ideas we use to navigate around your code into the product itself and make it very easy to navigate around around the product. So instead of having to remember all the keyboard shortcuts, we've tried to make it easy to navigate to options. And so what we've got is go to action. And this allows me then to sort of search just for an action and be able to find it here and run with it. So I can type the name of an action and it'll filter down to anything like that. So I can do testing. So I can search for rename actions. Depends if I have something selected or not. And it'll bring the actions up there, and it'll then launch the refactoring. I'm launching this now by hitting the normal go-to keyboard shortcut, which is Control-T for Visual Studio, and it's Control-N for IntelliJ shortcuts. This brings up our go-to everything screen. If you hit it again, second time, it swaps to go-to type. If you hit it a third time, then it now goes to our enter action name. By default, we add in a few default values, which are a great entryway into most of the functionality of the code, generating code, inspecting, navigating, and refactoring. But we've made it even easier as well. If you hit Alt-Enter, in the menu we've got now, we've added a new magnifying glass icon there. And if we click that, not much happens. Normally, if you click that, there it is. Then we've got we drop down and we get into our items. So again, we can type rename, or we can do test, or we can do navigate, and from there we can launch the navigate to for the item that has the focus. And you don't have to click the icon either. You can just start typing. And again, it's a great way to get into the functionality of the product. Just hit Alt-Enter and start typing for what you want. So if I want derive symbols, I can go and find it there. If I want to refactor, I can just start typing refactor, and it'll show me the items there. Furthermore, the pop-up menu that we've got here for the Alt-Enter menu also shows keyboard shortcuts. And these are the keyboard shortcuts then that you would use to actually invoke the action directly. And so this kind of provides a little aid for learning the actions as you go through. We've tried to take this further as well and add it into the search dialog. So now the search dialog, we can start typing for things. It'll start searching. Sorry, it's the options dialog. The options dialog, you can search in that, and it will narrow down all the pages that are available, and it'll highlight where the commands are, whether the search text is listed in the page itself. And so it can help us find where things are used in many of the options pages that we've got. If I just swap to another solution, if we open this, we're trying to do a similar thing with code formatting. I've got some code here, some JavaScript code, and I want to reformat this. I don't like the commas that are sat here. It doesn't match my normal style of coding. So what I can do is I can go here, I can hit Alt-Enter, select the code, hit Alt-Enter, and I've now got an option of format selection. And that will just reformat the code I've got there. However, if I'm not happy with that code there, I want to change how that formatting is. I have to go into the options dialog. I have to navigate down to JavaScript, and then I've got my formatting style, and then I've got 4 pages of options which I can change the layout of that code. It's very powerful, it's very configurable, it's very useful, but there's a lot to actually get through to find out what affects this piece of code here. Instead, I can hit Alt-Enter, I can have my format selection, but then if I expand that menu there, I get a configure menu option. Selecting this will bring up a dialog here now, which shows me just the options for code formatting that apply for this particular block of code. So for example, I can change the way braces are laid out for functions, and it updates it directly in the code as I change it. And I can change the spacing for commas, semicolons, parentheses, brackets around the dots, and so on. It'll show me with my code exactly what needs to be changed, and it's just a subset of what we do. If you hit save here, it saves to the global preferences. If I hit save to, I get the option of saving it to the global preferences or to my team shared file, which will then be which I can then check into source control. It's a very useful way of bringing some of the functionality, that some of the options that we've got, making it available for use. While we're talking about code formatting, we've made a change. We've introduced something called code style. This is something that was previously hidden in the code formatting options, and also in the code cleanup options, and also in the inspections options. So it's the kind of things I'm talking about. It's not formatting, but it's as the name says, it's your style choices. So for C#, you've got the choice of when do you use var, or when do you have your this qualification for member variables or member fields or properties and methods. Previously, this used to live in the code cleanup options. When you did a code cleanup, it would get rid of all your usages of this or enforce them. It would swap all your var or your not and put them appropriately. But we also had inspections as well. So it would say if you were using var, it could display that as a hint or as a warning for you to change. And the same with this, it would mark it as dead code and so on. But this meant you kind of had 2 places to change it. We've extracted this out now to something called code style, and we can change it here. We can change to say whether we want to use var all the time for built-in types, only when it's obvious, or always use the explicit type. And we can say, and tell me what to do. Don't show it. Show it as a hint. If you see this, display it as a warning, and so on. And now code cleanup is just using the it is now using the code style options to be able to apply these settings when a code cleanup is done. Okay, so let's just see how are we doing for questions. Are we anything outstanding at the moment? Yeah, so there's a question there about the code formatting, which showed in JavaScript here. So if we configure this, oops, wrong button. If I do my format selection and configure, if I can get the keys all right, format selection, configure. This is great for JavaScript. We don't have this in C# just yet. The infrastructure has been built for it. We just haven't finished wiring it all up yet. This will come in a future update. So currently it's JavaScript, TideScript. It's also in C++, I believe. C# is coming very soon. Let's just see if there's anything else just now. Yeah, and yeah. Okay, so let's move on then, and let's have a look at some new inspections for ReSharper 9. So one of the changes we made is to our bulk inspections. So we've always been able to do, so for example, with redundant usings like we've got at the top of this file here, we've always been able to Alt-Enter and remove the unused directives in the file, the folder, the project, and the solution. We've had lots of requests to be able to do this for many other quick fixes and context actions, and we have greatly expanded the number of things that we do that for in ReSharper 9. So for example, here now we can remove the unused directives, or the next one down, we can remove all redundant code in the file or in the folder or in the project solution. It'll just run through the whole of the scope that you select, and it will clean things up for you. One of the ones we've got it for, which I'm sure everybody will be able to be happy for, we can remove regions. We can remove them one at a time, or we can remove them for the file, folder, or project again solution, and that'll clean everything up there. We can do this for other things as well. So we have a naming suggestion here where ReSharper says that it doesn't match the rules you've got set up. If you've got a public string, a public field, ReSharper is suggesting a capital letter rather than an underscore. We can do Alt-Enter. We can do Alt-Enter with the thing selected, and it'll say rename the file. Rename the field appropriately. Or again, we can expand this and we can rename everything in the file. And if we select that, it'll show us that we're going to run a bulk rename. It'll show us the previous name where it's going to be able to, what it's going to be changed to, and when it runs a refactoring across the whole solution, and it will then rename everything in place. We also have a few new inspections as well. So one of which is the collection element nullness inspection, which is an interesting one. This one will look at a given collection. So in this example here, we've got an IEnumerable of object. We're filtering it down here with a where clause, and we're saying where the item is not null. So we're filtering out all null elements. We then iterate over the sequence of not null elements, and ReSharper can now say, you don't need to do that null check now. That null check is unnecessary. The expression is always true because it knows that we've filtered it out. If we change that, the warning goes away. This can be done with known link parameters such as where, the where method, but similar to how we do it with other analysis, we can use the item can be null annotation attribute or the item not null attribute, and these provide hints to ReSharper to say that the items in the collection can be null or will definitely not be null, and ReSharper will warn us appropriately. The next example is checking for collection usages. So if we have a collection here which is just a list of items, if we have a method here which is adding a listener to our collection, it adds it into the list. We then get a warning here from ReSharper saying that we've added things into the list, but we're never using the list. So if I uncomment this notify method, which iterates the list, the warning goes away. So ReSharper is happy that we are both adding things into the list and using the list itself. And of course, it works the other way around too. If I comment out the add listeners, we're iterating the list, but we're never adding anything to it. And ReSharper will tell us that it's never updated. And finally, we've got a really nice inspection for inconsistent locking. This is where ReSharper will tell you that a field you have got is sometimes used within a lock and sometimes used outside of a lock. It's a good warning for when you're doing some kind of multi-threaded programming here. So in this example, we've got a list of objects, which is we call resources, and we've got our lock object. In the add resource method, we're locking the object, and we're adding about an object into the resources list. When we're doing a remove, again, we're removing the value from the list while it is locked. If we scroll down, we see our enumerate is enumerating the resources field outside of a lock context. And so it'll provide us with a warning, and it'll tell us that we're not locking. And so if we put in a lock there, the warning goes away. It's also smart enough to know when the field is used inside a private method, but the private method itself is used inside a lock context. So for example, this private method is using the resources list without locking it, but there's no warning. That's because the only place it is used is within this public method, which itself is locked. So if I comment out the lock now, we see that ReSharper has added a warning on this resource to say that actually it should be used from within a synchronized context. Again, it's a very useful inspection for when you're doing multi-threaded programming. Okay, another change we made with inspections is for how we do how we configure them. We have added. See, I should just search. That makes it so much easier. We've added configuring of group options. So we've got a lot of inspections that we have. You know, there's very, very many inspections in the product, and we've got them grouped. So we can group them by potential code quality issues, common practices, redundancies in code, language usages, and so on. It might be that we're not interested in a whole group of items. So perhaps we're not interested in these ones here. We find these warnings don't work for us, or whatever. We can now change the display of all of them in one go. So this will update the settings for all of our inspections, and it can essentially disable them, or it can say, actually, I want them all to be suggestions or all to be warnings to make sure that they are addressed. And we've got a little reset button there, which can reset them back to the default values. So again, it's a convenience method for just being able to change your settings with more of a bulk basis. Okay, so let's just see how we're doing for questions. Everything okay? Okay, right. Let's just move on. Right, another nice feature in the options. This is something that we have had in the options for a while, but has been very tricky to use. So this is our file layout editor. So when you run a code cleanup, it reorders your code and lays it out in a certain manner. And the way this gets laid out is up to you. So we can say at the top, we can say we're going to have, this is the default pattern here, for example. We can have public delegates at the top, public enums, static fields, normal fields, constructors, properties, indexes, everything else, and then nested types at the very bottom. And then everything can be ordered alphabetically within that. Previously, we had this fantastic bit of XML, which would allow you to edit this and to declare your ordering and so on. Very powerful, very, very useful, but not exactly easy to use. We've now got a very nice designer which will show us how we allow us to do this visually. So the way this works is to define patterns, and then once the pattern matches, it applies the rules of those patterns for each item. So we can have a look at NUnit is a nice example here. So if we have a look at the NUnit fixture, what this is saying is put all my setup and teardown methods down first, everything else, and then finally test methods at the bottom. Now, before we know to apply those rules, we have to decide that it's actually an NUnit test fixture. To do that, we switch to constraints view, which is this icon at the top right. If we click that, we get a our rules now for what defines an NUnit test fixture. The way this is defined is with an AND. All of these values have to be true. So we're saying that it's a class, it has the attribute test fixture and test case fixture attribute. And if it matches those, then it'll apply these rules here. We can add new entries from the box on the right. We can pull in an entry or a region, and those will be applied as rules here. Or then we can also step into you can double click on the rule itself and see how that matches there. So the way it matches setup and teardown methods, we've got an AND condition again. So it's saying AND is a method, and this condition also matches. This condition is a nested OR condition, and that is saying that one of these attributes has to apply. So it has the setup attribute or the teardown attribute or the fixture setup or the fixture teardown attribute. So as long as it's a method and it has one of those attributes, it matches as a setup or teardown method, and too far, and it will apply the rules. And that was the wrong method, so the wrong pattern. All of the members, then this has no constraints there, which just means anything that hasn't been matched by anything else will be matched there. But on the right here, you can see our toolbox. You can see the different ways we can do it. We can bring in a modifier saying it's got to be abstract or it's got to be read-only, and that produces an AND. We can pull in an OR. We can say there's an OR in there, and the kind lets us then choose whether it's a namespace or a type or a method or a field that is implementing an interface, and then you get to type in what the interface is, and it does a string comparison on that. And they've got other containers as well. So it's a very powerful way of describing how we can match things. The default pattern is the one which is used the most. The default pattern, that has got no constraints there, so that just matches everything. But then it has a lot of rules then for how things should be ordered. The COM layout one is very simple. There's no ordering. It's saying maintain the ordering that's already there, but then it's got much more interesting constraints. So it's saying basically that it's got to be an interface which is marked with interface type attribute or COM import, or that it's got the struct layout attribute. So we're saying don't reorder things for COM, because reordering things for COM will break COM interop. So that's a very powerful way of changing the ordering of your code during a code cleanup, and it allows you to do that now graphically and visually in a very interesting manner. Okay, so let's swap back to Mono here. ReSharper 8 introduced a dependency diagram, a project dependency diagram. This would give you a visual indication of what was of the ordering of your projects, of what project depended on what project, and it would allow you to understand which projects need to be built, your coupling between them, and so on. We've expanded this with ReSharper 9 with a type dependency diagram. So if I go and select a type, if I go back and architecture, show type dependency diagram, we get a nice diagram here showing us that particular type. We can now add extra types to it and show the dependencies between them. So if we hover over the type itself, we get a nice rich tooltip here, which then shows us, allows us to go to the declaration. It shows us the base types, that this one implements the iMetadata token provider interface, the inheritors, the dependencies used in the constructors, the references, and the usages of the type. So this allows us to add types onto the diagram. So we can add the base type, and it'll add that on. It'll show the usage between them, and then we get if we hover over the usage icon, we get to see it ourselves, and we can then navigate and go to declaration. That'll show us where it's being defined. Or we can hover over the added type again and see all of its inheritors. We can add all of those on, add the usages, and so on. If we go back to this one, let's add on immediate inheritors. And we get that added, and it's showing us now a very rich image of what's going on. Let's just make that a wee bit bigger. And again, we can navigate this, and we can continue adding items onto it if we require, or if we say that we're not interested, we can simply we can say show only the selected items, or we can actually just hit delete and remove the item, and it'll relay out to something more appropriate. If we hover over the type itself, the references between them are highlighted, and if we hover over the reference, we then get to see where all the usages are. We can click on show all usages, and it'll show it in the standard find results, and allow us to sort of very visually navigate our way around the code and view our type dependencies. Now you can see there are different types of link between the types here. We're showing several different kinds of dependencies here. We show aggregation dependencies where a member has a reference to something else, usages where it's just being used in a method or a field or something, inheritance where a type is a something else. We've also got return types and constructor injections as well. Very useful. We can turn those on and off. So if we turn off the aggregating, actually better if we turn that one on, because then we can see that the aggregating one actually tells you how it's being used as well. So you can say it being used in the reference. We can go to the declaration and we can see the name of the item that's actually using it as well. So if we turn on return types, we can see where those values are being returned from, and we can bring on constructor injectors as well. And we've got items there which we can bring that in. We can say that property reference is using type reference in a constructor, and it'll show us that it's there. So it's a very useful way of visually seeing the code that you've got. So let's just close that one for a sec. We can also do it by right-clicking on a folder, and we can get a type dependency diagram of all the items in the folder. And so it'll just pull everything in. So it gives us a quick way of seeing what our hierarchy is like in this manner, and we would be able to see then that everything is appropriately dependent on stuff. We've got another option over here in the toolbar on the top left, which is allowing us to use the move to folder on drag and drop. So what I can do is I can select a type and I can drag it. So I'm dragging it from the monosessile PE folder here up into the monosessile folder. And at this point, ReSharper is saying, do you want to execute the move to folder refactoring? And it'll move text segment into the mono.sessile folder. And it'll pull it up here. And we can see now that it's all done. Okay. Let's just swap back to this. The next thing on the list then is support for Xamarin Forms. This is where a picture paints is worth 1,000 words, and we can see we've got support for Xamarin Forms, XAML. It's the standard support that you'd expect: code completion, typing assistance, navigation, find usages, and so on. All for the Xamarin Forms particular flavor of XAML. Right then, shared projects. We have made some changes under the hood for shared projects. So basically, things should be work a little bit nicer here. The main the main changes really is that we understand a little bit more about context. We understand that something is being used in a shared project more, and that you might want to know that context as well. So if I invoke find usages, but let me show you the solution first. We've got a solution here which has got two projects and a shared project here, which is being used by both of them. If we have a look in the command factory class and invoke find usages on that, ReSharper now allows you to decide to know whether you want find usages for just the usages in Filter Explorer Windows Phone, or in Filter Explorer Windows, or in all. And if I choose all, we can see that there's two search targets at the top, and I get to see everything in the Windows Phone projects there. And then if I rename that and go back, we can see that it's updated the targets in both projects. If I expand and refresh, we can see that we've got command fac. It's affected both titles there. So basically, ReSharper is just a little bit smarter about understanding the context, make sure it all works for you, and it provides a bit of that context to you as you're working around. And this also applies to linked files where it's being used in linked files. Okay, let me just check, see if we've got any questions before we go any further. Let me see. Okay, so those are being handled nicely at the moment, so we'll follow up on any of those later. So right, Visual Studio 2015 then. ReSharper 9 provides support for Visual Studio 2015, Visual Studio 25, and also C# 6. These are both moving targets. It should be fair to say Visual Studio 2015 is still in preview. C# 6 is still being actively developed and changed. So we've got support for what's available right now. We've got some changes under the hood because of that. So, for example, we get to use Rosalind's project model for files and references rather than in previous versions we were using Visual Studios. That gives us a more accurate project model and is very useful there. We integrate Visual Studio's bulb menu into our bulb menu because ours is has more features with the sort of Alt-Enter typing searching. We have the option to be able to disable Rosalind squiggles and just use ReSharper squiggles, and we've got ASP v-next support as well. Again, work in progress. So I can show you here. So we've got an ASP v-next project. It's just a straightforward project here. The big difference with ASP v-next is that there's no standard project file. There's no .cs project file. We've got JSON files and a .kproj to work with everything. But ReSharper still understands everything, can still navigate around, can still take you to your definition of controllers. If we scroll down, we're still saying that this is an MVC method, so we can take you to either to the login view or to the method view here. So let's go to the login view, and then of course we've got all of these details up here, and again more features. So I can take you to the login controller, or I can take you to the account controller there, and the login method, and again it'll take you to whichever override that you want to know. So ReSharper understands ASP v-next. We also understand C#6, so we'll have a look at some of the nice stuff with C# 6 here. A simple one here is indexes, an index-based indexer, so I can ReSharper knows that you're going to put strings in here, and it'll allow you to fill those in, no problem. We need a comma there, that's what's going on there. And you can see here that we've got some qualifiers being marked as redundant. This is C# 6's using static classes method. Up at the top here, I'm doing an import of using system.console. So I'm not bringing in a namespace here, I'm bringing in a static class. I'm bringing in the console class, and it means that I can use all static methods without qualifying it. And again, this is where we can say remove redundant qualifiers, just a single one, or across the file, or project or solution. So again, more bulk uses here. We understand C# 6's exception filters, where you want to have the exception caught, but only if a certain condition matches. And we have again support for things like find usages where this method isn't known. We can Alt-Enter, we can do create method, and that will bring us up with that will fill in create the method for us and allow us to implement it as we see fit. It'll fill in the appropriate signature for us. If we come down here, we understand auto property initialization, so it can be set here. And if we have a private setter here, ReSharper knows to grey that out because we're only setting it, we're setting it directly here with initializer, and so it can be made get only. And a get only auto property is now an immutable property. So rather than having it a get and private set where it's still mutable and can be changed at any point in your code, it can only be changed once, which is through this initialization here. Similarly, we know that this property is being set in the constructor and only in the constructor, so our private set is unnecessary here as well, and it can be made get only. And here's another one where if we're using math.py or math.pow, ReSharper knows not to use that, and it can remove those. But it's also giving us a squiggle on the return value here. We can say we can use an expression body, and we can convert that to an expression body, and now we've got an expression bodied property. This is C#6 syntax for creating a get only property based on this expression here. Finally, we understand null propagation. So we're getting a value in here. We're doing an as cast here, which might be null. And if so, we want to return null. Otherwise, we want to return the name of the value. ReSharper is saying we can use null propagation here rather than checking for null. And we can change that now. So if circle is null, if circle is null, name doesn't get evaluated and the value is just returned as null. We can take this a little bit further and we can inline that message, and then we can convert this to an expression body as well. And now we can we've got several little steps which will take us to some more very nice succinct code. Okay. And a very good point as well with Visual Studio 2015 is that with the changes that Microsoft have recently made, they've introduced Visual Studio 2013 Community Edition. This is a free version of Visual Studio. For some versions are free, as long as you meet the relevant criteria. And this combined with ReSharper can give you a very powerful and a very reasonably priced development environment, especially when you take into consideration ReSharper has open source licenses, MVP licenses, and educational licenses as well, all of which are free. So moving on then, we'll have a quick look. I'm going to whiz through a number of changes for TideScript. It's had a lot of changes. We've had about 270 new inspections. A lot of them have got quick fixes. We can sort of do create from usage, change all, and so on. More inspections, like looking at finding duplicate references for TypeScript files and graying them out, modifying your modules, moving them around, creating setters for where you've got a getter, and converting to expression lambdas. Also some new refactorings, which introduce the field or copy a type or moving about, and also renaming file will appropriately update the file module dependencies and reference comments and so on. And also live templates are now understood and handled in TypeScript as well, as are generics handled properly. Right, that brings me on to my favorite feature. Let's just go to the appropriate page, regular expressions. So regular expressions are very powerful, very useful, but also very difficult to use. They're very tricky to write, they're very tricky to read. So we're introducing support to try and make that a little easier. We've got syntax highlighting for regular expressions. We've got brace matching, different colors for different items in the code. So for example, character classes, qualifiers, escape characters, and even comments then are highlighted in green. Of brace matching, if there's an error, so if you're using a character class incorrectly, we display it as a squiggle, as an error. We fix that up properly. We can Alt Enter and validate the expression, where it brings the expression up into a dialog, which we can then start typing into, and it will match. Or we can decide that actually we've got the regular expression a little bit wrong. So if we change that and it matches appropriately, if we now click the Insert button, it'll update the regular expression in place as it is. We've also got code completion. So it'll show us appropriate completions such as qualifiers, how many times we want to match something, character groups, and also escape characters and grouping constructs and so on. And this is all well and good when the pattern is inside a a method that we know that this needs to have a regular expression, but this is just a string constant. So we lose all of our nice regular expression magic here. But we now got an option. If you hit Alt Enter on the string, you can say make regular expression here, and now it's known as a regular expression again. Finally, a very nice feature we have here is because we know that there is a named matching group in here, a capturing group in the regular expression, we know to be able to pull that out and put that into IntelliSense for you there. And it gives us useful information right there. Okay, so a quick overview then of everything that we've just shown you then. We've got changes to the ReSharper platform. That's a combined platform with our unified installer and our simplified licensing. Changes in the navigation, which is a bit of better improvements to find usages, and then the ReSharper for functionalities as well, which is go to action, the search and the options, the easy configuration of your code formatter, make it bringing out some of the functionality of the product. Making it easy to use that. Editing, look at that. Honestly, I've skipped a bit for you as well. I'll come back to that one in a sec. Let's pop back here. This is a good place to show that. Editing. I forgot to show you this, I apologize. We've introduced some filters in your IntelliSense. So the code completion, let's just swap back to this one. So ReSharper 8 introduced changes to code completion, which allowed you to just type and it would find stuff. So if you wanted to have, if you wanted to introduce access violation exception, you could just type AV and it would find it, and if necessary, it would import it and bring it in for you. So it was very useful for making you for completing code based on what you're typing. However, it's not very useful for browsing. So if you want to actually just see what there is on a particular type, for example, we've now introduced filters so that you can show just properties, or you can show just methods, or you can show just fields. And you can also filter by whether it's public, or whether it's internal, or private, protected or private. And all of these then are also based on keyboard shortcuts. So you can hit Alt F to show me only fields, Alt P to show just properties, Alt M for methods. We've also got filters for interfaces, for structs, for enums, and so on. And we can also ignore types as well. So if I want to hide properties, I can do Alt I P, and all of my properties get hidden. And if I can hide methods as well, Alt I M, and it will hide values there for you too. And these filters can be search again. These filters can then be persisted within an on-off state, and you can save that then how you want to display it. We've got changes to inspections with being able to configure inspections by group, some new inspections such as the inconsistent locking inspection, visual file layout editor, so to make it easy to decide how your code should be laid out. Tight dependency diagram, very useful way of seeing how your code is dependent on each other and what the dependencies are. See that very visually. Support for Xamarin Forms, improvements for shared projects, support for Visual Studio 2015 and C#6. We've introduced we're going to have C++ as part of the ReSharper 9 product at some point. It's currently in beta version and will be working soon. You can still download that off the website right now. We've got support for TideScript and we've got support for regular expressions. And that brings me to the end of everything. Some useful links here, links to ReSharper, the links to the .NET page, which is details what's in ReSharper Ultimate, which is also includes the .trace, the .cover, .memory tools. If you have any questions, you can tweet us at the ReSharper Twitter account. The video is being recorded and will be available on our JetBrains TV YouTube account shortly. And of course, if you want to ask me any questions, you can email me at matt.ellis@jetbrains.com, or just send me a question as a citizen bat on Twitter. We'll just see now if there are any other questions that are outstanding. And I don't think there's anything that's currently outstanding. What we will do is we will have a roundup of the questions, and we will include those in the blog post announcing the availability of the videos, and we'll follow up with any other questions by email. Okay, so thank you very much for coming.